Obviously back at it today. Excited to get back on the field. Player day off is always really, good time for us as coaches to kind of sit back and evaluate where we've been after 4 days and push ahead for the next 4 days, kind of put them into different segments and, try to improve as we go. Just had one roster announcement to make. So we signed Frederick Jones, who's a defensive tackle, and we released Brandon Riley, wide receiver. So we're still at 90 on the roster right now. But, obviously, a little bit of an adjustment there this morning. So, this week is a big week for us. We kind of move into the third down phase. So you'll see a little bit more down and distance situational stuff out on the field. Still a lot of transition from that standpoint. So there'll be a lot of drills moving around the practice field. But it's good to be out in pads, still working on our fundamental technique. We got to evaluate that really kind of with a, magnifying glass yesterday. There's a lot of things we need to improve on there, a lot of details that, kind of as the week goes with the install that we had, that we got to go back and kind of slow down on some things and make sure that we're getting the details of that handled first. But the situational stuff that we installed, we got to keep going with that forward so that we can get to a normal, football game and get ready to go. So that'll be upon us soon enough. So back in the red area. So like I said the other day, we'll continue to, practice that. That's nothing more important than points. So you'll see that there. And then also the mix of the early down stuff in the field. So similar, style to what we had the last couple of days. But, obviously coming off the day off, we're expecting here, a lot of high energy, a lot of effort, and a lot of everybody kind of moving around. So, questions? What do we got?
You mentioned the roster move. Obviously, you guys have a bunch of injuries up front on defense. I know being careful with some of them. But
yep.
First, an update on Deshaun Hand and Austin Bryant. How serious are those injuries? And then second, what sort of opportunity does that provide some of the other guys that are getting all those reps?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity, for those guys that get that situation where they can jump in there and, maybe be put up in the first group. I don't know if I mentioned to this group, like I said to the team the other day, it's whatever your name is on the position chart, if you have that opportunity to jump in there with everybody else, and you got to make the most of it. Sean and Austin, got dinged up in practice, and we're kind of evaluating them. It's going to be a day-to-day thing, from that standpoint. Just, as we evaluate it, we'll be careful with that situation and make sure that we're doing everything possible to get them out there when we can. So we're focused on the guys that, have to go now out and practice and be out in the field. So, those guys that have that opportunity to step up, there's some younger guys that are in those positions. I think it's a great opportunity for them to actually be in the huddle. And, I think it's one thing when you're in the huddle with another younger player or rookie and you kind of get some of the huddle calls that come in. But when you have to step into that huddle with JD and he's calling the plays and it might be a little bit more advanced, it might be some more detailed to the things that we're doing. I think it, from a player standpoint, puts a lot of pressure or puts a lot of importance on you, making sure you know what you're doing. So I think that's great. We got to foster as much of that competition and that pressure as we can and see how they respond.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're not talking like potential season-ending type injuries.
Yeah, again, no, I mean, it's day-to-day for us. We'll just kind of take it as it goes.
One of those guys that got a lot of reps with the injuries was Kevin Strong.
Yep.
A guy that we didn't know a whole lot about before that day. Seemed to pop a little bit some of those plays. Your impressions on what he can offer, I guess, at the different spots along the defensive line?
Yeah, he's a little bit different than maybe some of the bigger bodies that are out there. So from a defensive tackle standpoint, I think there's some more flexibility with some of the things positionally that we can do with him. This will be another good week for us with him and his skill set when we get into some of the passing situations too to see how he responds. But certainly a guy that's trying to make the most of his opportunity. And really, if you watch it closely, he's in a lot of different positions. So he's kind of in the different alignments, whether he's down at the nose guard or the 3 technique, the 5 technique, whatever it is, he's kind of being moved around and being utilized wherever it is that we kind of need to plug him in. And he's done a good job of handling that, those different roles. So the defensive line right now, again, in general, it's just we're trying to learn the technique first, and whether you're outside shade on the guard, outside shade on the tackle for us right now, treat it the same, but let's make sure the technique's consistent. We'll get into scheme and all that other stuff at another time. But from again, alignment standpoint, it's really just all about making sure the technique is correct.
Obviously, you got some time before you have to cut down the roster, but when you're making those decisions, how do you, I guess, draw the line on what special teams is going to mean when you're going through those?
Yeah, special teams is a big part of it, and what we do, obviously, we meet as a coaching staff, offense, defense, special teams, and everybody talks about the players, and we go through all that. One of the things we all have to identify is what are their special teams roles. We talk to them in certain phases, pretty much just the 4 phases of the game of special teams, and what if we have players that are, strong contributors in all 4 phases, 3 phases, 2 phases. Some of it's based on their reps that they're getting offense and defensive wise, and maybe those phases could be modified. But right now, everybody's trying to learn and find roles on special teams. And that's really a critical way to, help this roster and help yourself when we get to that kind of cut down date is, how many different roles can you play and how many different ways can you help the team? And special teams is a huge part of that. So I think that's a conversation that we always have, and we try to stress the importance to the players that, that's part of your job. Like I said, with the exception of maybe a couple positions on the field, quarterback, whatever it might be, everybody's really got to be ready to go on special teams in some form or facet.
To make more of an impact on the personnel decisions in the last year, how much has that helped the culture that you're trying to establish here and bringing some guys in that you've really earmarked?
Yeah, I think Bob and I kind of, we've always have the same vision of what it should look like, and obviously, being here and working together now, and having an opportunity through a couple of the different, call it larger cycles of roster movement, it's just we've been able to hone in on some of those guys that we think are really going to fit what we're trying to do. So he and his staff do a great job of identifying those guys and then working with the coaching staff. And there's always not only is there kind of a general manager head coach relationship, but at some point what we're trying to cultivate and develop is between the scouting staffs and the coaching staffs. Our scouts do a great job, and you'll see them at practice. They're out there trying to pay attention to drills right now. So we're in a process where not only are we trying to get the team going, trying to evaluate the players and do all that, but we're also educating everybody within the organization of what we're looking for. So you'll see the scouts out there, they'll be watching drills, they'll be evaluating guys that maybe they looked at in the spring, or guys that are currently on our team, and talking to the coaches and say, hey, what are you looking for? And I think that whole process helps the entire organization move in the right direction from that standpoint. So I would say there's a lot more of that going on right now.
You mentioned early on down and distance and getting the ball downfield. I just wonder how much you ascribe to the theory that average yards per pass attempt is a key statistic, because the higher it is, the more it indicates that you're throwing the ball when you want to, not because you have to.
Right. I think it's something that we definitely take a look at from a standpoint of see how our production is working, and kind of how we're controlling the game from that aspect of it. I think we have some guys that can get downfield and get the routes, deeper into the coverage, and we have some success with those kind of conversions, which stresses the defense more when you have that as a higher stat from that standpoint. So right now for us, though, without getting into statistical stuff, it's just we got to learn the offense first. We got to learn, the different plays. We got to learn the techniques, the fundamentals. And then as we start to, game plan and package plays together and see how we want to attack an opponent, then we're going to try to take advantage of as many of those opportunities as we can. But right now it's just installing those type of plays that will be able to affect, an opponent like that. Those are going in, currently. You'll see some of those out there. And any opportunities that the offense has to make a big play, it always, really pays dividends for us.
Democratic debates in Detroit tonight. Is there any questions that you would ask?
Yeah, I'm going to stick to football here and just try to make sure that we have a good practice. So hopefully we just try to get first down today.
Points, obviously most important stats, but turnovers is another really big one to success in the NFL. You didn't generate enough last year. Is there anything you've added or emphasized in these early practices to maybe help stir that up, get those going in the right direction?
Yeah, it's good. It's a big point of emphasis for us, and there's a lot of different ways to turn the ball over. And certainly, we're adding another one here today with third down. So we look at all those situations as turnovers. If the defense can get off the field, get the ball back to the offense, that's a turnover situation for us. If the offense can keep the drive alive and doesn't give it back to the opponent, that's also a turnover situation. Attacking the ball, things like that. We work really hard at that stuff. We did last year. We're doing it this year. We try to change up the drills and maybe look at some of the different ways that teams are losing the ball through the course of the season last year. And is there a point of emphasis that we're missing that we need to kind of maybe refocus on or attacking? And certainly, you have to coach that stuff too. And we got to do a better job of coaching it to be able to get after it and turn it over. So it's a big part of the game, along with tackling. I would say there's a big emphasis on our team for tackling, so that the ball's completed, running back breaks the line of scrimmage, that we're going to be able to be in a good tackling position. So big point of emphasis for us. I would say we're just trying to coach it and teach it as hard as we can. And I would say the players, the second time through some of these drills, you can really kind of see them execute them a lot better. I think they're really kind of dialed in on what it is, whereas we might be in a situation last year where everything was so overwhelming. I think some of the things now that are just routine, and now they're getting really the details, and I would say turnovers would be one of those.
In that regard, about the turnovers, when you studied how teams lost,
Sure.
Is there something unique or different about the way turnovers came?
Yeah, there's a couple different things in there. I think if you look at last year with the ball and maybe some of the ways that the players were handling the ball, security, and I think those are some of the things that we're going after a little bit different. So I would say across the league. Yeah, I think turnovers are being forced in a little bit of a different way with some of the different techniques that the defenders are using, and thought there was some pretty good stuff there. So we'll give it a shot.
Players, teams being more aggressive and trying to strip the ball, or different methods?
Different methods. Yeah, different methods. Yep.
Thank you, guys.
One more. Sorry, one more.
Just when you go back and look at film from practice, is there a difference between the way you look at a guy who's, say, a first-round pick and a UDFA, or can you see a glaring difference, or do guys get a little more?
I think in the evaluation process from that standpoint, no, I mean, I think everybody's out there kind of starting over, and, I can't remember who exactly said it, but I think it was Jimmy Johnson at the end of it was kind of like, at the end of the draft, it's just 10 names on a note card. So, it doesn't matter if they can help you, when you took them, as long as they can go out there and produce and help you win games, no one really cares in the end. So, don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly sure who said that, but we'll give Jimmy credit for it anyways. But it's really true. In the end, it doesn't matter. Just all the guys are out there competing, and I think what you try to do is evaluate pretty quickly what are their skill sets, can they help you, and then it's up to us to really trying to foster some of that competition. I would say, some things happen naturally, but some things you have to kind of force as a coach and say, all right, let's get this guy in this situation and see how he responds. I think everybody's kind of held to the same standard. I really think, that's what we got to do to just keep it fair and honest. It's from that standpoint, that's the only way to really kind of keep the competition consistent.